and maybe practice on your own if you are interested in doing that, because again, you're going to have access to this tenant for the rest of the day today. And then once we go over our leaves, in lesson 11, we'll be able to assign to all of our policies to a leave profile. And that leave profile is then assigned to the employees in their people record. Now, you may have one leave profile for everyone in the entire company, and everyone follows the same policy. You might have employees in different states or different countries or different unions where the policies are different. So you might create separate leave policies or different leave profiles for different groups of people. You can do that as well. So we're going to go down to page 2, which is the introduction. So again, this was everything that I just went over in the table of contents. You're going to see the personas down at the bottom, very similar to what you've seen in other classes. So Sean Ivan is the system administrator that we're going to be logging in as Sean Ivan to do configuration changes. So the usernames are always their first and last name all together. There's no space in between. So Sean Ivan is going to be Sean Ivan. Holly Ivan is going to be Holly Ivan. And it's not case sensitive. In the chat window, I'm going to enter the password, which a lot of you know already. Automate 1 exclamation point. Capital A, everything else lowercase, number 1, exclamation point at the end. Everyone has the same password. So let's go to page 3. The leave of absence solution maintenance tasks. Some of the most common things that we're going to do. Adding leave types, adding eligibility, adding documents, configurable fields, a lot of these things that we talked about in the table of contents. So down below on the bottom of page 3, you're going to see all the building blocks that go with leave. Anything that is orange relates to leave. Anything that is yellow is going to relate to timekeeping. So again, when we call these building blocks, that means that they're all lined up when we go into setup. We always start at the bottom. We create step number 1. We take a step, create step number 2, pull in step number 1. Go to step number 3, pull in 1 and 2. Building and building and building until you get to the level of a profile. So we're going to see that when we log into the system and when we go into setup. So let's go to page 4 and take a look at the leave policies that MVP Athletics has. And again, they might be similar to what you guys have as well. So you see 9 boxes here. MVP Athletics has employees who can go out on a leave for illness, injury. So the employees can request time off due to approved illness or injury. The employees can use PTO while they're on a leave, and that might be paid leave types. So employees can be paid using their paid time off benefits while out on a leave of absence. Number 3 is eligibility. Employees are eligible when they work more than 1,250 hours and they've been employed for more than a year. Documents, number 4, there are certain documents that we need to send to the employees with a certain amount of time. We can add those documents into our database and we can link them to an employee's leave case. Number 5, our employees can also go out on intermittent leaves. We may have employees like someone who is using FMLA because they have migraines. So they're working most of the time, but every now and then they call out sick using FMLA because again they have migraines. We might have an employee that needs to go to physical therapy 2 days a week. That's intermittent, they're still working 3 days a week. If they're out completely, that's a continuous leave. Number 6 is short-term disability. When an employee is out on STD, they are paid a percentage of their regular rate of pay. You can either pay a fixed percentage, like they always get short-term disability at 60%. They might use their leave time at 40%. Or it could be a distribution based on length of service. Have they been here 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years? So they might get a different distribution. Number 7, they can go out on a family leave. Employees can request a leave of absence due to an approved family member's illness or injury. Military leave, the employees can request a leave of absence due to military orders or active duty or reserves. And they can also take a personal leave. They can take a personal leave for educational or administrative purposes or whatever it might be. So what we're going to do is use those building blocks. And like I said, here's a picture of that. You see that window here with them all lined up, right? One on top of the other. So as you can see the arrow, when we configure, we start at the bottom and we work our way to the top. So the implementation team that you're working with right now from Kronos, they are starting to configure your leave policies from scratch. They're going to be starting at the bottom and working their way up to the top. Your configuration is going to be done for you. So if there are any changes that need to be made when we go into setup, we might not need to start all the way at the bottom. We might start on like step number 5. But if we start on that step, we need to make sure we carry it through all the way through the building blocks above it to make sure that it's included where it needs to be included. So that's something that we're going to do in class. So if we take a look at page 5, reviewing the setup for illness, injury, leave at MVP Athletics. Now, our first exercise here, it says Sean Ivan wants to review the configuration of continuous sick leave in the system and ensure that it meets the requirements of MVP Athletics leave policy. Now, this first exercise is really just kind of looking around. So you can either watch me, or if you want to do this exercise with me, feel free to do so. Toggle over to your tenant if you want to do it with me. So when you get to your tenant, you're going to log in as Sean Ivan, all one word, no spaces, with the password of automate1 exclamation point. So capital A, everything else lowercase, number 1 exclamation point, no spaces in between. And once you log in, you should see Sean Ivan's home page. And you can also see, there's a tile called My Profile. You can see his picture. So what we're going to do in the upper left-hand corner is let's go to Main Menu, the 3 lines. On that slider, we're going to go to Administration and Application Setup. So this is where we do configuration for everything. Looking at all of these different types of windows, I'd like you to go to Leave Setup. It's in the upper right-hand corner, Leave Setup. Go ahead and expand that window, and here you're going to see all of those building blocks. Okay. Now, if we follow the exercise, again, Sean Ivan wants to review the configuration of continuous sick leave in the system and ensure that it meets the requirements. So what we want to do is we're looking up illness, injury. Now, what I want you to notice is when you look at these building blocks, if you were to start at the bottom, notice you have leave categories. So the first thing I'd like you to do is click on Leave Categories. Our categories are already built. Now what a category is it's a very broad umbrella of the different types of leaves that my employees may go out on. Okay? So I have self, family, personal, and military duty. You can have as many leave categories as you want. Every single leave case for an employee has to have a category associated with it. So these are my categories. I'd like you to go in the upper left-hand corner and click that house next to the Kronos logo, taking us back to setup. Now I'd like you to take a step up. I'd like you to go to Documents. Now this building block here is where I can set up the documents that I have that goes with an employee's leave case. You can have as many documents as you'd like. So you can see that I have a certification healthcare provider, like a medical certification form, certification of exigency, military caregiver. I have a return to work form. You can have as many forms as you want. We actually create these in Word, and then we upload them to Leave. Go in the upper left-hand corner. Let's click the house again. If we take a step up, we then have Leave Types. I'd like you to click on Leave Types. Leave Types, kind of like pay codes, but we're in Leave. So we call them Leave Types. They can either be paid or they can be unpaid. If they're unpaid, we list them as tracking leave. So when we set up a leave type, you choose whether it's paid leave or tracking leave. So again, tracking means I want to track it. It's not paid, but I want to track how much time they use. So you can see for paid leave, I have personal, regular, sick, STD. I'll talk about the unpaid in a minute, and vacation. So these are paid leave types that the employees can use when they go out on a leave. The reason I have unpaid as a paid leave type, you're going to see this in the leave rule, it's if they run out of everything else. They ran out of vacation, they ran out of sick time, but they're still out on a leave, I want to record it as something. So I want the system to automatically start to use the unpaid if they run out of all of the paid time. That's why that's there. And then all of my FMLAs and military, these are all tracking leave types. So again, it means they're unpaid, but I want to track how much time they've used. Now what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to find the one that says FMLA, let's go with illness injury, FMLA illness injury. Go ahead and click on that one, and that will take us into it. So you can see how this leave type was configured. So again, they selected a group of tracking leave. They gave it a name. They gave it a code. So if I'm viewing leave time in a calendar, and then where it says general, they attached it to an accrual code and to a pay code. And the reason why is when I use this leave type in leave, and then I commit those hours to the employee's time card, it will turn into a pay code. So the leave type of FMLA illness injury will feed into the time card using the pay code LV FMLA tracking, and I want it to automatically deduct from the accrual bucket of LV FMLA. So the leave type is linked to the pay code and to the accrual bucket. Now, if you look underneath the code, you see all these tabs. If you go ahead and click on the tab for documents, notice that all of my documents configured in my database are on the available side. We selected rights and responsibilities and put it on the selected side. So this is why we had to create the document building block before we could create leave types. Remember I said create step number 3, pull in 1 and 2. So I'm saying that if you go out on a leave for illness injury, this is a required document, rights and responsibilities. If you go to the next tab, document due dates, the benefit of putting your documents in the Kronos database is that you can set up these due dates. So this is saying that the form is due back 5 days before the leave start date. Then you can go to the next tab for document reminders. I want the database to send an email to the leave administrator 1 day after the due date to notify the leave administrator that this employee's document is overdue. And then my last tab is a subsequent reminder. They didn't set it up, but they could. I could send out another reminder 2 days after the due date. So the leave administrators don't have to worry about looking at this information because they know the system's going to remind them. When I went to the document reminder, I could have set up a reminder 2 days before the due date to say, hey, just want to let you know their document is due back in 2 days. So maybe I reach out to them before they're overdue. You can set this up however you want. So let's go in the upper left-hand corner and click the house. We can also set up reminder templates, just like we did for the document reminders. You have another way to do that. I'd like you to take a step up to leave reasons. Now, when you look at leave reasons, the reason is a little bit more in-depth explanation as to why they're going out on a leave. Remember the category was like a broad umbrella? When you create these leave reasons, the reason is linked to the category. So you can see that I've got the category of family and I've got adoption, baby bonding, child, exigency, foster, military caregiver, parent, and so on. Then at the bottom, you see that I have a category of self, and my leave reasons are illness, injury, maternity, occupational injury. Because they're configured like this, when I set up a leave, I could never select a category of family with a reason of occupational injury. They don't go together. I can't select that. So every single leave case has to have one category. And then when you select the category and you go to reason and bring down the drop down, you'll only see the reasons that go with that category. Okay? Now again, you could have different categories and reasons for different states, different countries, different unions. So just keep that in mind. When we create a leave reason, we can enter a code for viewing them in calendars. And you pick and choose what paid leave types and unpaid leave types can an employee use if they go out on that type of leave. So again, they can't go out of the box because of the configuration that we did here. So what I'd like you to do is down at the bottom of your list, the category of self, we do have a reason for illness, injury. I'd like you to click on illness, injury. So this is how it was created. They associate it with the category of self. They named the reason illness, injury. They gave it a code. And they went to a section for applicable paid leave types. They chose the paid leave types and put them on the selected side. So if I go out on illness, injury, I can use sick, STD, unpaid, and vacation. Then I have a section at the bottom for tracking leave types, unpaid leave types. And they selected FMLA illness, injury. And again, you might have a policy where you give your employees 12 weeks a year, so that's 480 hours. And if they go out on a leave and they use all 480 hours, but they're still out, I want to track it as something. So my company decided to track it as something called non-FMLA illness, injury. So that again means I ran out of FMLA time, but I'm still out on a leave. So if you do look at your book on page 5, number 5 says list the paid leave types that are associated with illness, injury. So I'm just showing you how you would find that information. Now another thing that you could do is if you go to the top, go ahead and click return because we didn't make any changes to this. Actually, right from the window here, I didn't even have to go into it. I could see the paid leave types right from here. So my paid leave types are sick, STD, unpaid, and vacation. Number 6 on page 5 says list the tracking leave types. So it would have been FMLA illness, injury and non-FMLA illness, injury. And then if you turn the page, number 7 says take note of the code. So the code would have been that what we try to do is kind of put the category and the reason together. So it would have been self-illness. Now let's go in the upper left-hand corner and click the home again. So in your book, number 9 says, let's examine the leave rule for illness injury. So if we go back to leave setup, what I want to do first is I want to kind of take you step by step. We just went over leave reasons. I want you to click on eligibility requirements. So when you look at eligibility requirements, I want you to notice that you have a category. Okay, so we have family and we have self. I have created eligibility requirements if you're going out on FMLA to be a military caregiver, FMLA family, and FMLA self. So you can see that I've set up these eligibility requirements. You can see the descriptions of them, how I set them up. But if you want to go ahead and click on FMLA self, go ahead and do that so you can see how this is set up. When we talk about eligibility, we gave it a name. We associated it with a category. And under this tab for qualifiers, there are 3 of them. Number of active days, number of days employed, and number of hours worked. And you can use any combination of these 3 options, or you don't have to use them at all. So number of active days means in my people record, am I listed as active? So let's just say that I've been with the company for 10 years. Maybe I was out on a leave for the last 3 months. I just came back on June 1st. And now I'm requesting another leave. Well, for the last 3 months in my people record, I was listed as inactive. I've only been active since June 1st. So you might say, I have to be active for at least 90 days before I can take another leave. That's what that means. Number of days employed, it's going to look at my hire date. Number of hours worked, it's going to look at my time card. Okay. I also want to show you that there is a tab for questions. You can enter additional eligibility questions. Okay, additional eligibility questions. You don't have to, they're an option. Okay. But you have to set them up where I can either answer yes or no. Okay. So as far as custom eligibility, this is where that would be. So you can enter questions, but again, they have to be set up where I can either answer yes or no. So this would be your custom eligibility. Now, there is an option when you go into an actual leave case too, that you could also override the eligibility requirements. So if you wanted to manually check eligibility, you know, again, using the word custom, you could do that and you could bypass the eligibility that you put in the system. You can do that too. So let's again go ahead and just click return. And when we get back to eligibility requirements, let's go back in the upper left and click the house. If we take a step up, we also have default leave notifications. Go ahead and click on that. Now, default leave notifications. These again are emails that the database could send, let's say, to an administrator. A default notification, if you guys remember from the other classes that you've taken, like your MSD class for leave, when you go through a leave case, there is a section that is called frequency and duration. So that section in the employee's leave case is if an employee came to me with a medical certification form. And that medical certification form was filled out from their doctor that said they were going to go to physical therapy 2 days a week, 8 hours per session, for 6 weeks. I would enter that information in their leave case in frequency and duration. Okay? These default notifications would be if they deviate from it. So if they deviate, if they went to physical therapy 3 times in a week instead of 2, or if they went to physical therapy for 7 weeks instead of 6. Okay, that's what this would refer to. So you'll notice, like this one says, notify when a certification frequency is exceeded. They can either be limit driven or date driven. So again, limit driven, let me know if they went 3 times instead of 2. Date driven, let me know if they went for 7 weeks instead of 6. Let's go back in the upper left and click the house. And now we're going to take a step up and go to leave rules. When we look at the leave rules, you can see that my leave rule is also associated with a category. So now you're back to your book on step number 9. Let's examine the leave rule for illness injury. So go ahead and find the leave for illness injury and click on it. The leave rule is going to be assigned to an employee's leave case. The leave rule is going to dictate how the employee is going to use time, the order, and if they're going to receive time concurrently or not. So for this leave rule, we can see the rule tree in the lower left. Notice you have paid leave. Underneath paid leave, it has sick, vacation, and unpaid. Notice that they are cascaded. That means the employee is going to receive one at a time. So the system will automatically charge their sick bucket. If they run out of sick, the system will automatically go to vacation. If they run out of vacation, they ran out of everything, we will record it as unpaid. Notice they have tracking leave, which represents unpaid. They're going to use their FMLA illness injury. If they run out, then it's going to be recorded as non-FMLA illness injury. Notice that your paid leave and your tracking leave, they are lined up, right? They're not cascaded, they're lined up. That means my employee is going to receive sick time, which is paid, and FMLA illness injury, which is unpaid, concurrently. We want them to get paid, and we want to track how much FMLA illness injury time they're using. So number 11 in your book, examine the structure of the illness injury leave rule in the leave rule editor. What is the order which the leave paid is taken? So it's sick, vacation, unpaid. Now, if we look at step number 12, in the box showing the leave rule step, click sick. So just click on sick. When you do, you can look over to the right to see how it was configured. So it tells you that they added a taking step, they added the leave type called sick, they did not use a taking limit, and this leave type is going to deduct from the accrual code of sick. So number 12, what is the accrual code for the sick leave type? Is there a taking limit? So the accrual code is their sick bucket, and again, there is no taking limit. However, you do have the option to use that. If you wanted to select a taking limit, you could then enter a stop taking balance. And you could do that for every one of your leave types that's over on the left. Let's go in the upper left-hand corner and click the home. Now, step number 15. Let's examine the leave profile for the employees at MVP Athletics. Again, I want to include a little bit more than what your book is doing. From leave rules, if we take a step up, we have configurable fields. So if you click on configurable fields, anything that you want to track about a leave case that Kronos doesn't have a field for, you can create a configurable field. So all that you're seeing right here, these are just all examples. So claim numbers, claim manager name, doctor's name, facility name, family member's name. Again, whatever you want to track that Kronos doesn't have a field for. When you set them up, you have the field type, where it could be short text, long text, number, date, amount, whatever you want it to be. You can enter maximums and decimals depending on what you select. This option that says include in request. What do I want the manager or the, include in the request? Am I going to allow my employees to go online and put through their own leave request? Do I want to include this field so the employee could answer it themselves? Some of them are yes. Eligibility notes is no. Is it a required field? They have to enter something. 2 of them I have as yes. And they're all listed as active. So again, you could add whatever you want here. Let's go ahead and click the house. And now if we take a step up, let's go ahead and click on leave profiles. So a leave profile is where I'm going to take all those building blocks and I'm going to group them together. So we have one here called MVP Athletic Leave Profile. I'd like you to click on that. So when we look at the leave profile, underneath the description we have all these tabs. So when we go to leave categories, they selected every single category and put it on the selected side. So it looks to me like they have one leave profile for everyone in the entire company. So all of their categories are on the selected side. If we then go to the next tab for leave types, what you want to do is always be aware of what category do you have selected on the left. So you can see that family is selected. For this profile, if I go over towards the right, what available paid leave types can they use if they're on a leave category of family? So you can see the paid leave types that they put on the selected side, and down below, the tracking leave types. If you go over to the left, click on military duty, and you can see the ones that they put on the selected side. Personal, and then self. Okay. So if you look at step number 17, ensure that the self-leave category is included in the selected leave category box on the leave categories tab. So if we go back to the first tab, leave categories, and again, we do notice that yes, self has been moved over to the selected side. If we go ahead again and click on leave types, number 18, and again over to the left, make sure we have self selected. Number 19, in the selected tracking leave type box, ensure that FMLA illness injury and non-FMLA illness injury are included, and they are. They're both on the selected side. Now, number 20, we're going to go to the next tab for eligibility requirements. Again, always make sure you're aware of what you have highlighted on the left. So, number 21, what is the eligibility requirement for FMLA illness injury? Now, we have self highlighted, and if we look down below at FMLA illness injury, you can see that they assigned the eligibility requirement that we saw a little earlier called FMLA South. So again, they had to be employed for at least 365 days, and they had to work at least 1,250 hours. So they're attaching the eligibility requirement to that leave type. So now let's go in the upper left and click, well, actually, I don't want to do that just yet. I'm going to add more. So eligibility requirement, let's go to the next tab for leave rules. Again, they selected the leave rules from the available side and put them on the selected side. Again, according to category. We still have self-selected. And then go to configurable fields. So they were picking and choosing what configurable fields go with each category. So for self, we have a lot of them, but notice it doesn't ask you for a family member or a relationship because you're going out on a category for yourself. But if you go over to the left and click on family, those two were added to the selected side. If you go over to the left and click military duty, the only custom field was general notes. Okay, so different categories can have different configurable fields. So again, the profile is where we grouped everything together. So let's go ahead and click the home again. So what I want you to notice in your book, if you go to step number 23, it says, finally, let's examine the FMLA eligibility. Well, I did that all in order, so you can see exactly how all these work. So we've already done that. Okay. Now, you'll also notice that there are two additional steps. Document status. So you have documents. Go ahead and click on document status. I'm going to keep a record of my documents. Are they pending? Are they complete? Did I send them? Am I waiting for them to be received? I have received incomplete, received complete. You guys can track whatever you want. These document statuses come delivered, but you can add to them, you can delete them or inactivate them if you want to. And then if you click the house and go ahead and click on leave case approval status, these again that you see here come delivered, but you can add whatever else you want. Now if you click the house, I want you to notice how these are laid out, right? Why do these come above profile? Everything that I said in a profile, we group together all the building blocks below it. So remember I said you could have a profile for Massachusetts, you could have a profile for California, because you have different policies. Whatever you create for document status and leave case approval status, they're going to be the same list for everybody in the company. Doesn't matter what state, what union, or what country, because they're not included in the profile. So whatever I create on those two tables, everyone's going to have access to them. All right, so any questions? I've now taken you through every single one of these building blocks. Any questions, anything you want me to review or go over, please let me know. Where do we use or map the first two? The first two meaning leave categories and documents? The top? So these two. So I'm going to click again on leave case approval status. So when you go into an employee's leave case, there's going to be a field for leave case approval status. And when you bring down the drop down, you're going to see all of these options. So you can't say, well, this is a leave for Julie Adams and she's in Massachusetts. I only want them to see approved and denied. So there's really no mapping. Whatever's on this table, when you bring down that drop down in the leave case, you're going to see all of these options. Yep, same thing with the document status. Same thing. All right. So if we go to page 7 in your book, lesson 3 is setting up paid time off while out on a leave. So here there's step number 2, PTO while out on a leave of absence. So down below it says Sean Ivan wants to update the configuration of continuous sick leave to include paid personal time. So we're already logged in as Sean Ivan. We're already looking at setup. So looking at our building block, let's go to leave reasons. And what we're going to do is we're going to find illness injury. And I'd like you to click on it, so that will take you into it. So again, what Sean Ivan wants to do is he wants to update the configuration of continuous sick leave to include paid personal time. He says, hey, we're changing our policy. We want them to be able to use their personal time as well. So you can see that personal time is sitting over on the available side. All we need to do is select it, click the single arrow, move it over to the selected side. And then let's click Save and Return. So we just updated the leave reason. That's all we did. Now I'd like you to go in the upper left and click the Home. Now remember I said your configuration is going to be done too by your implementation team. So if you ever come in here to make a change and you just made a change to leave reasons, and remember I went through and I showed you how all these building blocks are linked together. So if we now started on step number 5, we have to make sure that we carry it through all the way up to the top. So if we just modified a leave reason that they can use personal, I don't need to create an eligibility requirement if they're using personal time. I don't have to create a default notification if they're using personal time. But remember, my leave rule is going to dictate the order in which the employee is going to use leave time. So I have to make sure that that personal time is included in my leave rule. So let's click on leave rule and let's click on illness injury. So when they created the leave rule, they did not include personal time. So Sean Ivan says, when someone goes out on illness injury, I want them to use their sick time first, then their vacation time, then their personal time. Well, we have unpaid. So what I want you to do is click on unpaid. Now, when you're adding, editing, whatever to a leave rule, the way you're going to do it is up top where you see those blue buttons. To the right, you see a field that says select an action. Bring down the drop down, and what we want to do is delete the unpaid. So hit delete, click OK, and now it's gone. I want you to click on vacation again. We want to add personal underneath vacation. So if we go back to that field for select an action and bring down the drop down, whenever you want to add a leave type, it's a taking step. Add taking step. So I want you to click add taking step, and you'll notice on the left of your leave rule it says add. Whenever you see that word add, that means go over to the right and configure it. So the leave type already says personal. That's what we want. We're not going to add any taking limits. So below that, click Save, and it takes what you configured on the right and pushes it over to the left. So now we have the personal time, and what we want to do is we want to add the unpaid time back in. So we're going to select personal time, Go up to the top, select an action, add a taking step. Over on the left, we see the word add, so we're going to go over to the right, and our leave type, bring down the drop down. And I had to create this as a paid leave type for it to be here in the list. So we're going to select unpaid and then save it. So see how they're all cascaded? So again, the system will use the sick. If they run out, go to vacation. If they run out, go to personal. If they run out, go to unpaid. Okay, and again, the leave rule is going to be attached to the employee's leave case. So just to show you in your book everything that we just did, step-by-step instructions on page 7 over to page 8. So let's go to our blue buttons and click Save and Return. And in the upper left, click the Home. So we just updated the leave rule. Let's go ahead and kind of carry it through. Let's go to Leave Profiles. Select the MVP Athletic leave profile. And as we know, we just added a leave type. So underneath description, click on the tab for leave types. On the left, make sure we have the category of self selected. And for our available paid leave types, select personal. And again, move it over to the selected. We want to make sure that it's added to the profile. And then we can click Save and Return. And then click the Home. So no matter where you start in your building blocks, make sure you carry it through. Now I do want to point out, like I knew which ones we had to go to. There's no harm while you're getting used to this, click on each and every one. And if I didn't see any field for personal time, I know that it wouldn't be included there, right? I just keep moving up, moving up, moving up. Now let's take a look on page 9, setting up our eligibility requirements. So in the middle of page 9, Sean Ivan wants to add an eligibility requirement for taking personal leave, which will also be added to the employee request form for leave. He creates a new eligibility requirement called eligibility personal, which asks the employee whether this is their first leave of absence in the past 12 months. So just by looking at that, you can kind of tell that's probably going to be a question that I'm setting up. So what I'm going to have you guys do is go ahead and do that exercise on page 9. Let me know if you need any help. I'm going to be doing it at the same time that you are, so if you ever need to look at my screen, go ahead. And then I just want you to click that green thumbs up when you're done. Let me know when both of you are done and we'll move forward. All right, so if either of you have any questions about that or anything you want me to go over, just let me know. All right, so now we're going to move on to page 10, setting up leave documents. Now, putting leave documents in the database is actually optional, but there are a lot of benefits of doing it. Like we went over already, you can set up all of those reminders that the database would automatically send to the leave administrator if you have them in the database. Now, with this one, I want to point out a couple of things in your book. It says Sean Ivan has created an updated return to work leave document template and needs to upload it into Workforce Dimensions. All of our documents would be created in Word, okay? And they have to be either an XML or an HTML format. They can't be a regular Word document. When you create those documents in Word, you can include data tags, fields from the database. So when I see that document in an employee's leave case and I want to view it or forward it, it would automatically be personalized for that employee. Or I could modify it if I needed to. Now, when it comes to documents, documents are not only used for leave, they're used for attendance, they could be used for anything. So I want you to continue in your book. It says, note, before beginning this exercise, you must create a sample Word document and save it to your computer. We really don't have to do that. Alternatively, you could use a Word document already saved to your computer that your organization uses for your leave cases. For an additional challenge, refer to the list of the document tags in the online help to insert tags used in the leave document. So just to let you know, online help, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a question mark. You can search for data tags, and it will show you the data tags that go with leave. I'm going to show you that here in the system. So we don't need to create a document. There is a document return to work that's already created in our database. But what I want to show you is if you go over to the left, the last window in the left-hand column, see where it says Common Setup? Go ahead and expand it. And when you look in Common Setup, at the very, very bottom, you might have to scroll down. The second one from the bottom is called Document Templates. I'd like you to click on that, Document Templates. This building block here is where I would upload the document from Word. So you can see here that we already have a return to work. If you want to go ahead and click on that, feel free. And you can see that the uploaded date, you can see the domain is that it's used for leave. It's in English. You can see it's a DOCX, and it's clean. If you want to go in the upper right and click Edit, go ahead and do so. So this again is where we upload it from Word. So we give it a name. In the description, I would enter the exact path as to where this document was saved. So if you're looking for it 6 months from now, you'll be able to read that and see where it is. It's active. It's for the leave of absence. It's in English. And I went to, we don't have to do this, choose a file. You'd go to your path in Word and you would upload that file. So we uploaded already the return to work document. So we can just go in the upper right and click cancel. So again, that's where we uploaded it to leave. Now if you go in the upper left, click the house. And now we're going to go back to leave setup. And you'll notice that you have that line item here for documents. Go ahead and click on it. What this building block is it gives you the ability to choose what languages should your document be in. So if you go to return to work and click on it, the way it was set up, and I don't have a language package installed on my database, I can only have my documents in English. But if you did have the language package, you could put your documents in different languages. So click return. and then click the house. Okay, so again, a little deceiving because in Leave Setup it says Documents, but you have to do all that work first in Word and in Common Setup, and then you can choose your document there. Now, if we go to page 11, associating a leave document with the leave type, we've gone over this. We took a look at this before when I took you through each building block step by step. So I'm going to have you guys look at page 11, give you some time to work on your own. Go ahead and do this exercise. And again, I'm going to be doing it at the same time you are. And then just give me a green thumbs up when you're done, please. And step number 2, where it says select the check marks next to the tracking leave types. The only one I want you to do is the one for FMLA extingency. You don't have to do all of these. It's the same thing. So just do the one for FMLA extingency. So if either one of you have any questions, anything that you want me to go over or review, please let me know at this time. And anything that we've covered so far, if there's anything at all that you want me to review, anything that we've covered so far, let me know. All right, don't see anyone typing. So the next thing we're going to do is look at page 12, setting up notifications for intermittent leave of absence. So this was their policy for step number 5, intermittent leaves. This is when the employee is still working, but they might have to take a couple of days off. So again, I might have to go to physical therapy 2 days a week. I'm still working 3 days a week. So we have intermittent leaves and we also have continuous leave. There's nothing to be configured there. Those two options are going to come delivered. But what they're talking about here is the notifications if an employee is on an intermittent leave. And again, I gave you the example. They might come back with a work medical certification form from their doctor that says they have to be out for 2 days a week, 8 hours per session for 6 weeks. So what we can do is we can create default leave notifications. And again, they can either be date-based or limit-based. We've talked about these. So let's take a look at page 13. Now in this scenario, it says Linda Hudson is the leave administrator at MVP Athletics. She has asked Sean Ivan to include the name of the employee's manager in the notification that she receives when an employee's medical certification expires. So what they're saying is this is already set up. Linda Hudson just wants us to make a change to it. So again, we're already logged in as Sean Ivan. We're already in setup. This is another one of those things that could be set up for leave, attendance, timekeeping. So you're not going to find it in the leave building blocks. What we're going to do over on the right, second one from the bottom, there is a window called System Configuration. I'd like you to expand that, System Configuration. And again, you'll have to scroll down. You're going to see a line item that says Workflow Notifications. I'd like you to click on that. So a workflow notification is an email that the database will send out, or it could also be an alert. Okay? So when we look through the notifications, I have a lot of them. Now, if you go to, let's go to the name column heading. And what would help us to find this is let's sort by name. So if you just click one time on the name column heading, it will sort it in ascending order. And now we can look for LV Notify Leave Administrator when certification end date is reached. And you can go ahead and click on it to select it. And then we can click edit. So this is how you set up a notification. You give it a name, you give it a description, you can enter a subject, a long message or a short message. You can pick and choose on the right who it's going to go to. So if we go in the lower left where we see the long message, it says the certification end date indicated on the frequency and duration screen of the leave case has arrived for the following employees. And then that's a data tag where it says leave employee full name. That's a data tag. So what Linda Hudson wants us to do is put your cursor at the end of it And then let's include a space and type who reports to. And then we want to insert a custom tag. So you see a blue button down below, insert custom tag, and you get this screen. And the first group is attendance. Well, that's not what we want. If we bring down the drop down, select leave, and now it's going to show you all the data tags that are available for leave. And they are in alphabetical order. We want to look for a data tag called manager name. And then select it and click OK. So now you just entered that data tag in your long message, so it will include the manager's name. And then we can go in the upper left-hand corner, make sure we save it. Okay. So again, these notifications are for timekeeping, leave, attendance. You can set them up for whatever. So let's go in the upper left-hand corner and click the home. So again, we're going to receive a notification if they deviate from the information that we put in the leave case on frequency and duration. Now on page 14 in your book, box number 6, short-term disability. What they're talking about here is an option. It may apply to you, it may not. They're saying when an employee uses short-term disability, they are paid a percentage of their regular rate of pay. So down below it shows you their policy that their full-time and part-time employees are eligible for short-term disability, and they pay out their short-term disability based on a length of service. If you've been here 0 to 2 years and 11 months, you get 25% STD. 3 to 5 years and 11 months, 50%. 6 to 9 years and 11 months, 75. 10 plus, 100%. Again, that is an option. Short-term disability benefits provide coverage up to 90 days based on the approval of the disability carrier, not including a 7-day calendar waiting period. That also is an option until long-term disability benefits take effect. Employees who will be absent for work for over 7 consecutive calendar days due to non-work related personal illness or injury qualify for short-term disability. If the absence is foreseen, employees should notify their supervisor or manager and discuss the length of the leave. So again, these are options. What we're going to do is let's take a look on page 15. And what we want to do is click on leave types. Leave types. And we see that we have STD as one of our paid leave types. I'd like you to click on STD. When using STD, we can see that it's linked to a pay code of LV-STD and accrual LV tracking. If we click on the tab for documents, we can see certification of healthcare provider, return to work, and rights responsibilities is on the selected side. If we go to the tab for document due dates, we can see that their medical certification form is due back 10 days after their initial leave request date. The other two do not have due dates. Let's go in the upper left and click the home. And let's go ahead and click on leave rules. When we look at our leave rules, we see that we have a category of self and a leave rule for short-term disability. Go ahead and click on short-term disability. So in your book, it says Linda wants to know what the waiting period is for her employee to go on short-term disability, and does it include Saturdays and Sundays? if we look at the leave rule, notice it has what we call a decision. A decision is a question. Has it been not more than 90 days? If the answer is no, we ask another question. Is the 7-day waiting period over? The way they created the rule is if you click on is the 7-day waiting period over, if you look over to the right, when they added the decision, they gave it a name. The name is the 7-day waiting period over? They set up a qualifier saying the start date is the leave start date and the waiting period is 7 calendar days. They could also be schedule days. And do we want to exclude Saturdays and Sundays? They said no. So it does include Saturdays and Sundays. B says she also wants to know what kind of distribution is used for short-term disability. So if we go back over to the leave rule, is the 7-day waiting period over? If the answer is no, the employee is using their sick time. If they run out of sick, they're using vacation. If they run out of vacation, they're using unpaid. But if the answer is yes, the 7-day waiting period is over, they included a length of service distribution. I'd like you to click on that, length of service distribution. So again, if you go over to the right, they gave it a name, and you had two options, fixed distribution or a distribution based on length of service. So if you selected fixed distribution, you could say, my employee is going to receive 60% of short-term disability, 40% of sick, then vacation, then unpaid. It's fixed. It never changes. They said, no, that's not our policy. We want distribution based on length of service. And when they selected that, they then had to create their own table. So they said 0 to 3 years, first percentage is 25%, second is 75. Well, if you look over to the left to the leave rule, your first percentage is short-term disability. So if I've been here 0 to 3 years, I'm going to get 25% short-term disability, 75% sick. If I've been here 3 to 5 years or 3 to 6 years, I'm going to get 50% short-term disability, 50% sick. 6 to 10, 75% short-term disability, 25 sick. And 10 years plus, I'm going to get 100% of short-term disability. So again, these distributions are optional. You don't have to use any one of them if that's not part of your policy. Same thing with the question, has it been 7 days, 7-day waiting period? That's also an option depending on your policy. So now let's go in the upper left and click the home. And then if you look at number 9 on page 15, Sean Ivan wants to confirm that the short-term disability leave type and leave rule are assigned to the MVP Athletic Leave Profile. So now we're going to click Leave Profiles, and we go to MVP Athletic Leave Profile. And if we click on Leave Types, we want to make sure that on the left we select Self, and we can look on the selected side, and yes, we do see STD on the selected side, so we know that it was included. If we go to our tabs under description and go to leave rules, we already have self selected, and again, we can see the leave rule for short-term disability is on the selected side, so we're good. And then we can click home. And then on page 16, creating configurable fields for short-term disability. So this is also something that we've talked about. I'm going to let you guys do this exercise. I'm going to do it at the same time. Let me know if you have questions. And then again, give me the green thumbs up when you're done, please. Okay, very good. Okay, so for a moment, what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch my screen back. I'm going to go back to your materials. It's been a long time since we looked at this, right? We're now on page 17. So what I want to show you in your books on page 17, lesson 8, setting up family leave. So we've been talking a lot about self, right? But we know that we have a category for family as well. So setting up family leave, I just want to show you that if you go to like page 18, there's what we call a let me. We've been doing guide me's. I've been giving you information on all the building blocks. We've gone through the exercises. They give you step-by-step instructions. So there's also family leave. A let me just kind of gives you a scenario. It doesn't tell you how to do it. And starting on page 19, there's your answer key, right? So it does give you all the step-by-step instructions how to do it. And again, you're using the exact same building blocks that we've just gone through, just different information. And we have the same thing for lesson 9, setting up military leave. And again, this one is just looking around, what's included, clicking on the building blocks. So we've done that as well. So just additional practice there. And then same thing on page 23 for lesson 10, setting up a personal leave. So you can look at these building blocks that they're using and you can kind of see, yeah, we've gone over all of these building blocks. So what I want to do is I want to take you to page 25. I want to show you that, yeah, going through all these building blocks, I now want to group them all together into a profile. And the profile is what is going to be assigned to the employee in their people record. So what you're seeing on page 25 is the actual people record. So I can find an employee. I want to make sure that they have the leave license. And if they have the leave license, it's going to show you a leave section in their people record where you can assign the employee to a leave administrator and to a leave profile. So by assigning it to the employee, when you go to open a leave case for that employee, you will only see the information that's included in that profile, nothing else. Okay. Now we know that we've already gone through all those building blocks. We went through, we updated the profile. So what we're going to do now is we're going to play the role of Holly Ivan. And we're going to go into an employee's people record and assign them to a profile. So in the upper left-hand corner, I'd like you to click the main menu and sign out as Sean Ivan. Now, if you look in the upper left-hand corner, you have 2 tabs. Make sure that you close one. And then enter a username of Michael Martin, all one word. Okay, and now we're going to log in as Holly Ivan. And automate 1 exclamation point. Okay, so now we're going to go to main menu, click maintenance, and let's go to people information. Okay. Now we're going to select Patricia Edwards. So when you click on her name, you're then going to see her people information on the right. Kind of have a summary up at the top. And then it's broken up into sections. So you have employee, you have timekeeping. If you scroll down, you're going to see a section for leave. And under leave, we're going to see leave information. We want to expand that. So let's go ahead and assign her to a leave administrator. Let's assign her to Linda Hudson. And let's assign her to the profile MVP Athletics leave profile. Okay. Can you have more than one leave administrator? Good question. When it comes to assigning it to the employee's people record, you can only assign the employee to one leave administrator. However, let's say that all three of us were leave administrators. When we set up the three of us, you might give me access to Patricia Edwards. All three of us might have access to Patricia Edwards. All three of us might be sitting in benefits and we have access to everyone in the company. So even though you may be her official leave administrator, I can still see her leave information as well. What will happen is you will receive any of those notifications that we set up. But again, I might have access to Patricia as well. I would be able to see all of her information as well. Okay. But yeah, you can only assign her to one leave administrator in her people record. Is there any delegate for leave so that if the leave administrator goes on leave notifications, it will be routed to the other person? There are delegations in Workforce Dimensions, just like there were in Workforce Central. To be honest with you, I haven't seen them yet, but I've heard that they're there. Yep, so definitely something you want to talk with your implementation team about if they're going to set that up for you. Good. Okay, so now we want to make sure we go in the upper right. We want to make sure we save it. So now what we can do is we can, if you allow it, allow your employees to go online and put through a leave request. And this is also a good way to test all of your configuration. So let's go in the upper left-hand corner. Let's go to main menu and sign out. And what we're going to do now is we're going to sign in as Patricia Edwards, all one word, with the automate one exclamation point. Access to herself. And if we go to the main menu, we can go to My Information and click My Calendar. So you probably saw this in your other classes as well. What we can do is in the upper right-hand corner, click on New Request. So a time off would be, hey, I just want to take Thursday and Friday off as vacation. That's time off. Leave of absence, I'm putting through a claim. So let's click Leave of Absence Case. And now you get that slider. And let's go to the start date. And we can just say that she's going to start her leave on June 23rd. And then her end date, let's just enter, I don't know, we can go with like July 26th. For a category, She's going to be going out on a leave because her husband is going to be stationed somewhere else in Hawaii, and she wants to go with him. So for the category, we're going to select family. And for the reason, when you bring down the drop down, you're only going to see the reasons that are configured to go with family. And we're going to select exigency. Then we're going to select the frequency, which is going to be continuous. So we created the categories, we created the reasons. Frequency comes delivered. It's either continuous or intermittent. So let's go down to the bottom and click continue. And now you see your custom fields. Now the custom fields that go with exigency, notice we don't see the one that we assigned, hospital or medical facility, right? Because it's a different type of leave. And notice that name of family member and relationship to family is mandatory. It has a red asterisk. So let's say the name of the family member, let's say Robert, and the relationship to the employee is husband. And then continue. Now we see the eligibility question. And they said, yes, I want to include it in the request. They had a question, does the employee work in a site with 50 or more employees? Let's say yes. And then submit. So this is the employee putting through the request themselves. And because we assigned her to an administrator of Linda Hudson, Linda Hudson will automatically receive that request. So let's go ahead and go to main menu and sign out as Patricia Edwards. And let's sign in as Linda Hudson, all one word. Automate one, exclamation point. So when we log in as Linda, we can see manage leave of absence, the tile, go to the bottom and click go to leave of absence. So this is our landing page, which you saw in other classes. And notice we have 1 submitted and 3 open. So if you click the arrow to expand the submitted, there's the leave request from Patricia. So let's put a check mark to the left of her name. And in the upper left, you have an icon for editor. Let's go ahead and click that. All that information that Patricia filled out automatically came over into the leave case. So we can see that the leave case was submitted. We can see the approval status is pending. Start date, end date. Over to the right, you can click see more. Frequency is continuous, category is family, commit to the time card. And then you have a section for case details. You can see the code, the status, it's pending, right? The initial request date, category, reason, frequency. And Linda Hudson can go all the way over to the right and click edit. So if Linda Hudson needed to change anything, she can. She's the leave administrator. So if you go down below to case status, bring down the drop down, and we can see that it was submitted. We can also close it if we wanted to. Let's just leave it as submitted. Notice the case approval status. Remember, this was one of the top 2 line items in the building blocks? If you bring down the drop down, you can see all the statuses that come delivered. Let's go ahead and mark it as approved. So remember I said you can't pick and choose which ones you see. Those are for everybody. So we marked it as approved. And then let's go down to case defaults and click on that to expand it. And what we're saying here is, yep, she's taking 8 hours a day. So she's going to receive 8 hours of paid, 8 hours of tracking. The day defaults. She only works Monday through Friday. So let's click on Sunday and Saturday. We don't want to allocate leave time to Saturday and Sunday. We only want to allocate time Monday through Friday. Her start time, let's say, yeah, she starts at 8 o'clock. We want to commit her leave time to her time card. And down at the very bottom, click Apply. Right? So again, Linda Hudson can make whatever edits to the leave case that she needs to. If we scroll down, our next section is going to be eligibility rules. Click on that. So eligibility rules that were already assigned, number of days employed has to be more than or equal to 365 days, and hours worked had to be more than or equal to 1,250 hours. So remember we were talking about custom eligibility? I might have other eligibility requirements that I might do more manually because I couldn't put them in the system. We only saw the eligibility questions that we could put in there, the eligibility options. So what I can do here is, let's say you go over to the right and you say edit eligibility. So here I see the eligibility requirements. I see the question. Now, I might have changed something in the time card or changed her hire date. I might want to recheck the eligibility, or I could say bypass the eligibility checks that I put in the system. I've done another type of eligibility, custom eligibility. So we bypass what we configured and click Save. It's kind of asking you, are you sure you want to do this? Say yes. And now you can see over here on the left, we bypass the eligibility rules. Okay, so you can do that. And then if you go over to the right again, you have another button that says Assign Rule. Go ahead and click that. So here is where you're going to select the leave rule to go to this leave case. So if we bring down the drop down, let's select the exigency leave rule. And it tells us the leave types are sick, vacation, and unpaid, and the tracking is non-FMLA and FMLA exigency. So notice that all of these are checked. I don't know if you give your employees the ability to make a decision like this. You say, okay, Patricia, this is what you're going to use. And Patricia goes, well, I really don't want to use my vacation time. And you go, okay, you don't want to use your vacation time? I'll uncheck it. And if I do that, the system will never apply hours to vacation. So again, you may give your employees the ability to make those decisions or requests, maybe not. So let's go to the bottom and click Save. So now you can see that you've assigned the leave rule to this employee's leave case. And notice the paid leave types. Notice that vacation is grayed out because we unchecked it. And you could always modify the rule if you ever need to. Let's go down to Documents. And we can see the documents that we put on the selected side. And one that we were talking about was the return to work. So all of our documents are here. If we go over to the right, we can click on Manage. And you see a whole list of your documents. Let's go ahead and put a check mark next to the return to work. And then up top, select an action. Let's say that we want to generate a new version. And then at the bottom, click Apply. So it's generating that document, and over on the left, you'll see a generated date in just a few moments. Okay, you can see the generated date and time. You can see the due date. And then if you go back to that slider under actions, you know, you can change the status and the due date. You could view the document if you want. Generate means create it. I want to create it as of today's date. Because now what you can do is if you go to this slider, go to the bottom and click cancel. Now that we've generated that date, that document as of today, notice in the upper right, you now have a forward button. So now I'm going to say, okay, well now I want to forward it to the employee. So if we click forward, and again, your document is the return to work. Let's say we want to forward it to the employee. We might also want to forward it to their manager, keeping them in the loop. You might want to add some additional recipients. That's all up to you. You could then enter the subject and a message. The document will actually be sent as an attachment. So now down at the bottom, we click forward, and you just sent that to the employee. So again, I said documents, adding them to the database was optional, but there are so many benefits of doing it, right? You can keep everything centralized. Yep. So remember we had the document in Word. We could include data tags. A data tag could have been the date, right? It could have been the manager's name. So those would be the most up-to-date fields from the database that would automatically personalize that letter for the employee. So I only want to generate it when I'm sending it out. So let's go to additional information. Here again, those configurable fields. And if the employee didn't fill something out, but Linda Hudson knows the information now, she could click edit and she could update any one of these fields. If we go to case notes, that's just freestyle typing, any notes that I want to make about the leave case, so there was nothing to configure here. And then there's that frequency and duration. Go ahead and click on that. There was nothing to be configured here. We didn't have to do that. But now you received a medical certification form from the employee's doctor saying the employee is going to physical therapy for 2 days a week, 8 hours per session for 6 weeks. So if you were to go over to the right and click edit, this is just where you would fill in that information. So again, we didn't configure anything. I would use the information from the medical certification form and fill this in. Okay, now this employee is going out on a continuous leave for exigency. This is not intermittent leave. So we're just going to cancel out of here. And then the next workspace is manage case notifications. These are those notifications that would be sent out if the employee deviated from the information that you put in frequency and duration. They exceeded the date or they exceeded the limit. Okay, so most of the time those two things are only used if your employee is going out on an intermittent leave. So this is how we test everything that we configured to make sure it's there, make sure we're seeing it, make sure the right people are seeing it. So any questions about anything that we've covered? Did you not see something that you were expecting to? Any questions that you have about the leave case? Anything you want me to go over or repeat? Let me know at this time. Okay, once the leave gets approved, a pay code will appear in the time card for the selected days, correct? It will. Now, there are a couple of things that you can do. Remember in the leave case, we said that we wanted to commit the hours to the time card? So yeah, we're going to force this information down to the employee's time card. You also have the ability to send it to the employee's schedule, which is probably a better idea, because when you pass it to the schedule or the time card, remember it turns into a pay code. And if you pass it to the schedule, it's then in the schedule, and anytime you have a pay code in the schedule, it automatically feeds to the time card. Yeah, so if you choose schedule, that actually means both, schedule and time card. But you can just bypass the schedule if you wanted to and force this information directly to the time card as well. Another thing that you saw in the Making Solution Decision class, we gave you a demo. Remember we talked about how you could set up your managers to go into the employee's time card and allocate time there too. And a lot of times people will allow the managers to do that for an intermittent leave. So like someone who is calling in because they have a migraine, I might be sitting in benefits and I'm like, every time they have a migraine, I don't want them calling me. I don't want them to call their manager. And I want the manager to be able to go into the time card and assign hours to the leave case. Because all this stuff that I'm seeing on my screen right now, I don't want to give my managers access to this. So I want to give the managers the ability to allocate time to a leave case in the time card. That's an option. So I can do that. Or for a continuous leave, the Linda Hudsons of the world, Linda Hudson would deal with the leave case editor and would commit all the employees' time to either their schedule or their time card. All right, can we configure such a way that holidays and Saturday and Sunday to be excluded? So Saturdays and Sundays, yes. Okay. Remember here in case details where I clicked edit and I chose what days I wanted to allocate time to. So here I excluded Saturdays and Sundays. As far as holidays, I'm not sure how that's going to work. If they can exclude holidays, I'm not positive about that. That would be part of your pay rules, or it might be a manual process. So talk with your solution consultant about trying to exclude the holidays. Yeah. Great question. Anything else? Darren, anything? Darren's been through 2 classes just today, so it might be an overload at this time. It's a lot of info. All right. So I'm putting my email in the chat window. Is there any way to have a tenant for 24 hours to do the other exercises on Friday? So the tenant that you're assigned to on the day of class, you only have it for that day. It gets blown away at the end of the night, at the end of the day. And it could be reconfigured for a whole nother class for a whole nother student for tomorrow. So you never want to use the same tenant that you were assigned to. Can you go into Knowledge Map Live and request a sandbox? Yes, you can. Okay. So you can go into Knowledge Map Live and you can request a sandbox. Now a sandbox is a tenant, but let me tell you how it works. What they do is they create, you've done that before? Okay. they create a tenant, I think it's for the week. So everybody that I have in class could be going into that same tenant and making edits, right? So you can imagine by the end of the week, it's a disaster. So if it were me, I don't know if I'm supposed to be saying this, but I would request a tenant and I would always try to use it on a Monday, right? Because it's more fresh that way. I don't know if there are a lot of people that use them, but you can do that. Yep. And then again, I entered my email address. So if you do practice today or you practice with a sandbox at any time, if you come up with any questions, feel free to reach out to me via email and I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. So one last thing I want to show you, as you guys know the drill, I'm sure, taking you into Knowledge Map Live. I'm going to be taking attendance for you guys. If you go into Knowledge Map Live and in this class, oh, mine expired, hang on. When you go back to the link for my class, in that little box there, there's a box for the survey. If you could fill that out, that would be great. And then the right below it, there's a link for certificate of completion. So once I take attendance, this will become active and you guys will be able to print out your certificate stating that you've completed the course successfully. And again, always good to have for future reference. So if you could go ahead and do that for me, I'm going to take attendance. And when you're done with the survey, just stay there. And I'll let you know when I'm done with attendance so you can print out that certificate as well. Got a lot of no-shows. Okay, so I'm saving attendance now. So again, once you're done with the survey, you should see that link for your certificate. Feel free to print that out. And then once you are able to do those two things, you're free to go. And if you exit out of the class, it is not going to disconnect you from your tenant. So you can play around with your tenant. You don't have to be in the class. If you're done using the tenant, you just want to make sure that you X out of that too. So if you do leave, I want to thank you so much for your time and your attention. I hope you guys have a great afternoon. Thank you. Thanks for coming. A lot of people didn't show up. Excellent. I'm glad it helped. Yep, questions always help everybody, don't they?